Seth afterwards, and he always looks inebriated. He just kind of like opens his eyes.
God juice.
Thank you to Seth Pincus. He's our staff person here on Sunday. Does all the setup for us and opens up the meditation with his beautiful sound healing voice and didgeridoo. Thank you, Seth, for all that you do for us and the support that you give. And for those of you that don't know, this is my friend Laurel Satori. Laurel and I have known each other for several years. And for those of you that have taken my theta healing classes, conscious mastery classes, and conscious anatomy classes, you always hear me encourage you to get a theta buddy or somebody that you can work with and practice. And Laurel here was one of two of mine that I worked with for several years. And the topic today I have is perseverance. And that was one of the reasons why I asked Laurel here today, is that she and I worked for years together, and as a spirit would have it, right when I started taking classes, both of us were not working full-time, and there were days we spent 3 hours on the phone. We would just call to say hi, and all of a sudden I would work on something she was going through, and she would work on something I was going through, and not only did we hone our skills as holistic practitioners and our own internal dialogue and our awareness consciousness, but we helped each other. And so
we made a deal that you could call without apologizing to hit the same subject one more time.
Closer. We one of us would call, and I would say, "I am so sorry to have to go over this again." And Laurel said to me once, she said, "Let's make a deal. It takes as long as it takes. And if you have to work on something again and again and again and again, then we'll hold space for each other until we're done working on it." And sometimes it takes coming at something from different angles and getting to the layers and getting to the bottom core issue of what something is there. You know, I'm not sure that we ever actually get to it. I'm not sure if there is an end to this journey of this human experience, because as I continue to work, I still keep finding layers, and I still keep finding layers. And maybe that is the journey. Maybe we never really get to the end of the layers, but like a champagne bottle that's got all kinds of pressure in it, if you shake it up and then you uncork it and the stuff spews out and the pressure is released and you feel so much better, but there's still some champagne left at the bottom. So we work and we heal and we persevere and we get to the bottom of our stuff and we work through the emotions and the feelings and the beliefs that compromise our feelings of being limitless beings. And do we ever get to an empty bottle? I'm not sure. But that isn't really even a point that I care to understand. All I know is every day as I continue to work, I feel better and my understanding gets greater. And people talk about manifestation. And I mentioned this before. When we manifest, manifestation isn't something you learn to do. Manifestation is something that happens automatically when you have removed the thoughts and beliefs that say it can't happen. And that is actually my life's work here. Running this center is, if you want to put a religious name to it, if you were to look at a book of all the different types of religion, there's one called humanism. And that would be the one, if I had to put a label on it, I would say, because I'm teaching people the power and the greatness of being human. What we have the ability to do, based on the energy that comes from this living organism called our body, coupled with the power of our mind, and then powered by the energy of the universe. That mind, body, spirit triad is a powerful combination. the most powerful combination is anything of three. If you look at three-wheeled cars or three-legged stools or a triangle, it's the thing that can't topple. A four-legged thing can topple because it can go from side to side, but the power of three in stability, it means it can't be toppled. And so the mind, body, spirit. And so most of us have a lot to do in our minds to get some work done. And I'm always asking you to inventory and go through and ask what your inner dialogue is like. We are so accustomed to hearing ourselves talk about what we don't want that we can forget sometimes that we manifest with every single thought. You manifest all day long. People come and say, I want to learn how to manifest. You manifest the second you wake up and the second you go to bed. But what you're not possibly realizing is that when you say, oh, I'm so tired, you just manifested yourself being tired. And if you say, I hate my job, I don't have enough money, I can't get along with my mother, you are manifesting every single time you think or open your mouth. And so I'm going to ask you to start creating a practice of recognizing when you are thinking or saying something that you don't want, and switch it around to something that you do. And I know that The Secret talks about positive affirmations. If you've got 25 cents in your checkbook, it's a little difficult for your ego to accept you to say, I am wealthy, I am wealthy. Because your ego is going to argue and say, no, you're not. But what you can say is, I am open to receiving wealth into my life. That's a positive manifestation without setting yourself up for an argument from your ego. So I always look for the positive statements that my ego can't argue with. I'm learning how to do this. I am welcoming to receive this in. I am willing to see this differently. I'm learning how to embrace this differently. So the trick is the I am G statements. I am doing, I am being, I am learning, I am opening. Those are in the now statements, and they aren't facts that can be disputed. So I wanted to share with you just a little bit of my journey. Most of you are familiar with it, and parts of it. Several years ago, when Artaban and I were married in the early 2000s, we had this beautiful home in Irvine, in a corporate city, safe city, big wide streets, everything was manicured, beautiful city to live in. We had a 5-bedroom house that we'd recently remodeled, hardwood floors, granite, fountain in the backyard. I had a husband, 4 kids, and a dog, and was running our family CPA practice, and I was miserable. I was angry all the time. Everything upset me in a mood. And I would come home from work and my kids would take a look at me and they would gauge the look on my face as to whether or not they would stay in their room or whether they would scramble upstairs. Because I was just constantly exhausted. And that was my catalyst. That was when I looked at myself and said, I am absolutely miserable and there's one common denominator here and it's me. And that's when I said, I need to find something. I need to find some way to get happiness. And so I started looking for spiritual churches and spiritual centers and a way to get into contact. I was always spiritual. I knew that there was something greater. And I dabbled in the different churches, and I went to the United Methodist Church that was down the corner from my home where my parents had taken us when we were younger. And I was looking for something, but it's difficult for me to sit in a room where there is one thought process. And for me personally, the organized religions that tell you what to think instead of how to think was the deal breaker for me. So I started looking around and I couldn't find it. And then one day I was at work. I was working over at the, on Fridays, I volunteered at the Orange County Small Business Development Center in Santa Ana, where I did pro bono work for small business owners. And as I was sitting there one day, I heard this phrase come into my head. It said, Temple of Light. And that was the day I realized I was going to be opening in my own center. So I looked for ordainment, got congregation status from the Universal Life Church, and the Temple of Light was born on the back of my car. It's still there. And I put the sign on the back of my car, and I was a congregation of one driving around in my car. You know, you got to start somewhere. And I started taking classes. I took classes with Doreen Virtue, and then I stumbled upon Theta Healing with Vienna Steibel, which is where I met Laurel. And we had connected at the teacher certification course in the summer of 2007. We met each other then. Pardon?
At the airport.
At the airport, yeah. Yeah, we were waiting for the van to the hotel. And so we met each other at the airport in Idaho Falls. But it wasn't until the following March when we took Intuitive Anatomy together up in Fremont, California, and we spent 3 weeks every day with another friend of ours, Renata, who lives in Mexico, and the three of us were inseparable during those 3 weeks. That was when we really bonded and continued to work. And I remember later on they told me how cool they thought it was that I was driving around with this thing in the back of my car without a brick and mortar building. But, you know, I got calls and people followed me. And, you know, people looked up the website, and I had people walking in. And later on, I opened this small suite across the way. Spirit guided me the whole time that I would be there for 9 months, that I would come here for 3 years, and that after that we'd go into a building for 5 years. And after that we'd break ground and build a 7-story building. Each step of the way, the most difficult thing that made it all happen was my own limited thinking that said, who, me? How do I do that? By myself? With what money? And who is going to help me? And this new building, as you've heard me all talk about now that we're moving to at the end of August, it's a huge expense and it's a huge building. And I was even panicking again last night, and I sat up and I meditated before I went to bed. And the angels just said, people will show up to help you. Trust that. And so I just had this internal mantra in my head, people will show up to help me. This is, I'm not destined to do this by myself. I may be the one that's the leader out there, but I'm not destined to do this by myself. People will show up to help you. When you ask for help, when you've got something going on in your life, and you need clarity, people will show up to help you, and all you have to do is have that internal mantra that says, I'm not alone. People will show up to help me. And people can mean people around you, your friends, your family, your mentors. It can also mean those on the etheric level. I have help in this, I'm not alone. And that is really probably one of the biggest internal dialogues that most of us have. How many people can say, quite honestly, that some of the time, if not most of the time, they feel quite alone? You know, no one knows how you feel. No one knows what you need. But we're not alone. And that's what communities are for. And that's why we gather together, and we pray together, and we meditate together, and we create friendships, and we give each other support when we need it. We have the most amazing staff here at the Temple of Light now. Seth, that works with us on Sundays. Tanya Fitzpatrick, our executive director. Jessie Chang, our creative director. Basha Karist, our new editor-in-chief on the magazine. Mary Westphalen, who's in sales and marketing. And Alyssa Fitzpatrick, who does gift shop and Saturday staffing. And it's going to continue to grow. I have the most amazing team supporting me now. I don't feel alone any day when I come in here, and I used to. But I persevered through it, and I knew that I could not possibly have been brought here. And I remember the day that I opened that first center. I'd been in there for about a week, and I was sitting there all alone. And I called Laurel, and I said, I'm sitting in this place, and I am all alone. What was I thinking? What was I doing?
Kind of be sitting in your car all alone.
It was a step up. It was a larger space. And Laurel said to me, do you think the Creator of all that is brought you to this place to open that suite, to have you sit there all by yourself, or words to that effect? You remember exactly what you said?
No.
It was words to that effect. It was, and she reminded me that I would not have done that. I would not have signed that lease and taken on that responsibility if it was just some random thing. And it's been a big journey coming and creating this, but here's where we're going. Here's the vision. This new place is not just a brick and mortar building. We are creating a unified, conscious community. And I'm actually giving it an acronym of UCC, a unified conscious community. And we're going out there and we're reaching all the other conscious community leaders and practitioners and saying, let's work together. Let's combine our resources. Let's join. And if we all join together, there's strength in number, then we can start creating a bigger presence here in Orange County. There's a whole conscious community in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego. Orange County really doesn't have one. Here we are, just these conservative Republicans for the most part, not speaking for myself. But it is the 21st most powerful economic entity in the world. The United States is first, Los Angeles County is sixth, and Orange County is the 21st highest economic power in the entire world. It's like there are countries, entire countries, that don't have the economic power that Orange County has. And there isn't a conscious community presence. Until now, we're creating one. And so we're going to join together, and there's strength in number. Last March, an older gentleman named Jojo Morango came to see me, and he had produced several magazines in the Orange County area before he got sick, and now that he's recovered from his illness, he's not quite his previous vibrant self, but he still wants to be active and communicate. And his son, Antoine, was the one who helped him get through his cancer with his reconnective healing modality. And so all of a sudden, Jojo, who previously would be the one who was poo-pooing this whole thing, now it had his attention because his own son was able to get him to a state of health through alternative healing. And so he went around to the Temple of Light, Awakenings, Ginger's Garden, Learning Light, all the places around here. And when he met with me, he said, there's nobody leading this community. There's nobody gathering this all together. There's no one that is collecting everybody and making them all act as one. And he didn't realize it at the time that although he and I didn't end up working together, I now recognize that that was an angelic force coming in and guiding me to be the one. And I had to get past the who me, why me, why me, why me. But I'm not answering that question anymore. I'm just here, and I'm doing it. And I listened to a recording yesterday by one of my dearest colleagues, Moira Shepherd. On Mother's Day, she had a recording that she sent out that you could listen to for free, and it was called Your Mother and Money, or Mother, Money, and You. And she was talking about how our relationship with our mother has such profound impact on our ability in relationships and money. And although I've done so much work with my mother, bless her heart, I found another layer that was even deeper, and that was that of limitation. My mother is the one who would say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go here, you can't quit school, you can't quit your job, you can't retire too early, you can't sell your house and move to, and everything is just, you can't. And that was just how she was raised. She was raised in that. So I realized when I listened to this call yesterday, oh yes, I can. I can do absolutely anything I want. I can climb any mountain, I can build any building, I can gather the community, I can go into my heart space, I can bring everybody together, I can empower all the people that I need to get into their heart space and start manifesting what they want instead of what they don't want. heal from illnesses, not feel alone. We can manifest a vision for the earth of clean energy and economic harmony and governmental harmony, and everybody is fed and healthy. We can do that with our visualizations. There are no limits. And that was the gift that my mother gave to me. She had me break through the feelings of limitation and go from I can't to I can. And so I thank her for being my greatest teacher. Because nothing feels as good as when you break free from the ties that bind you. I want you to just close your eyes for a second. I want you to put your hands on your heart. Recognizing your power. And I would like you to invite your guides, guardian angels, your higher self, whatever divine entity inspires and works with you, or many of them. Ask them to help you see yourself from their perspective. How powerful you are. How gentle, kind, and loving you truly are. How you have the ability, your personal sovereignty is intact at all times. And you need not fear having personal empowerment, because when you engage in your own personal sovereignty with the clearest and the most genuine intent, nothing that you would ever manifest would ever compromise somebody else's personal sovereignty. And so know that it is safe for you to manifest everything that you visualize. And when you visualize anything that you want to create, finishing the tagline with "for the highest and best good of all concerned" means that whatever it is that you're visualizing, it will come in a way that also complements somebody else's free will, and never compromise. We do not truly have the power to compromise anybody else's free will, and the fear of it is what stops us from manifesting. Know that you will never compromise anyone else's free will, and allow yourself the freedom to think in the most unlimited terms, absolutely with no boundaries of what you can create, and that you will persevere in this process and allow it to be revealed to you one step at a time. And so it is. So when I say perseverance, what I mean is it isn't as though you have to work and work and work and work and work and wait for that prize 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. The prizes come along every day. And what I found is I manifest something and it comes and I get the prize, I get the reward, the visual of it, and then it makes me just want to manifest something new. And so every day I get that kind of that acknowledgement that as I manifest with my heart, I simply think something and it happens. And I stay in that positive vision. It's a practice. It's definitely a practice. And occasionally I still do slip and hear myself saying or expressing something I don't want. But as I continue that practice, those things happen fewer and less frequently. And I catch them quicker and turn them around more effectively. It's a practice. How many of you have done something like dance or gymnastics or a sport or something where you've simply had to invest in practicing in it? What did you do? I mean, anything. And every day you practice it, you get the reward of being just a little bit better than the day before. You don't have to wait to see the reward all the way at the end of the road. So start practicing, creating what you want. And I mean everything, even towards, there's so much traffic on the road. You know, when I went up to Beverly Hills in April to that speaking event with Lisa Nichols from The Secret, I remembered thinking, oh my gosh, it's at 6:30, I gotta get to Beverly Hills by 6:30. It's gonna take me hours, and there's gonna be all kinds of traffic. All of a sudden I went, it will be easy and clear, and I will enjoy the journey there, and it will be a graceful, gentle journey. It still took me 2 hours, but strangely enough, it was like, and I had imagined this stop and start, but when I changed it to, I'm going to have an easy, graceful journey, it still took 2 hours, but it was almost like everywhere I went, there was like this opening where there were no cars around me. It was almost like I was in a bubble. And even though I didn't always go 65, 70 miles an hour, sometimes it was only 40 or 50, I still stayed steady. And I put on some beautiful music, and I didn't get there stressed, and I didn't get there tired. Because I caught myself in what I was manifesting, to manifest what I wanted, instead of what I didn't want. So everything. Start with the biggest things, but then start inventorying when you're hearing yourself say those things. So anyway, any questions before we